Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We have no public forum, so I'll move straight to apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Vandervis, so I'll move that be sustained. Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. I'll move that the agenda be confirmed. I have a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Staines. Any discussion? Those in favour? Against? Carried. Your usual reminder with regard to the declaration of interest, and we'll move straight to the financial result for the period ended 31st of March 2016. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. I'll just say a couple of words. Probably most of this is not news to you, since we had a bit of a discussion. Had a discussion about this in the last week. But overall, we've got a favourable variance from operating activity of $2 million. That's mainly due to increased operating revenue, high development contributions, which is a bit of timing, and savings in maintenance, other costs and interest costs. That was partially offset by high depreciation and lower grants revenue, particularly from the New Zealand Transport Funding Authority. Waipori, all I can say here, what a difference a month makes, or 6 weeks in this particular instance. Last month, you recall, we were at about $1.6 million unfavourable. This month, we're $500,000 favourable. I love world equity markets. They're all over the place. So that was a significant turnaround for the month. Capital expenditure is slightly behind budget, about $2.6 million year to date. And debt is just under $228 million, which is $19 million better than budget. And if there's any specific questions, I'm sure I or the team will be able to help you.
It's probably a silly question, but I'm just wondering, in the page 11 of 35 at the top, rates revenue, my question was just relating to the fact that we're 174, what is it? How much difference is that? 174,000 favourable. Now, is that just an anomaly with how it gets paid on different direct debits and that sort of thing, or have we actually increased our rate take because of extra houses and that sort of thing? and I'll ask a second question as well.
Can I get
the penalties? the second one, the penalties. How does that work? $521,000 of penalties.
Let's deal with one at a time. So when we struck the rates, there's always going to be some variance between actual and budget, and that can be due to a variety of things. If there's additional work done on people's buildings and it's done through a building consent, that will get added to their capital value. So that is always going to create a variance. Overall, though, as you can see, $174,000 out of over $97 million, you know how we're at the margins. So that's the first one. Rates, penalties. Yes, we do have penalties that we charge to people who are late in paying, and that's a function of timing and obviously their lack of payment. So it's one of those line items that we can't guarantee to get it wrong, but it's what it is.
Thank you. Several times in the report you talk about the housing, the property revaluation and the depreciation changes because of the adjustment to reflect the component nature of the assets. Can you explain to me what that jargon means, please?
So basically, when we did the valuation last year, the valuers did it on a component. So obviously the components can be things like the structure, which has a longer useful life than maybe the roof or the internal fit out. So effectively what we've done is that the depreciation is based on those components.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few questions that I sent through this morning around property and the capital budget and the arts and culture group. The favourable revenue we have due to higher than expected occupancy in our housing portfolio. Can we get an idea of what the vacancy level is relative to what we had budgeted it to be?
I don't have a complete answer to that question in the time that I've had this morning, but what I can tell you is that they've changed the way that they're operating the housing portfolio. So in the past, they've been taken up to 38 weeks on average to have a change around in the housing. So if someone went in, on average it took 38 weeks before the new tenant went in. We've significantly reduced that down. Like in some instances, we've now had them turned around in less than a week. Actually, 2 days is our record at this stage. So we're changing the way the business model that they've been operating, because I know you may roll your eyes and raise your eyebrows, but that is what they had been doing in the past. So that is the reason why you've seen a significant increase in the revenue there, because there's two wonderful things that's happening. One is we're getting higher revenue because of higher occupancy, and two, we're actually delivering a better service for the community. So the change in approach is kicked in since about September last year.
That is a heartening turnaround, thank you. The favourable capital costs due to figuring out a system for prioritising work, which is what I read that to be. It's in the papers it says that that may produce savings at year's end. Is property comfortable that the new method of assessing what work needs to be done will then be lower than this 1.61 million, and therefore won't need to be carried forward because the work doesn't need to be done?
So what we're doing there is that we're looking at, the key thing there is you need to look at your asset management plan, and you then need to assess what the actual building needs, as opposed to in the past, here's a lump of money and therefore you spend it on however you see fit. We're now saying, actually, let's turn this about face. Here's the asset, how do we maintain that asset appropriately? And that then is actually going to drive the budget going forward and how much money is going to be required for delivery of that activity. So at this stage, I cannot tell you whether that is going to deliver us more cost savings or it's actually going to incur more expenditure for us. You know, for instance, in the Civic Centre, we know we have to do a bit of work to get that up to improve some of the mechanical services in that building. The lift's been a very good example. Or the escalator that failed.
Yeah, it was functioned fine as a set of stairs. In terms of that faster turnaround of tenants, is that something that property envisages being a problem from an asset maintenance point of view? If you've got if a 38-week window turns into a 2-week window, that's obviously more difficult to do work in that time frame.
So the change in focus that they're having here, though, is that they're actually going out with the tenant to the house or to the property and asking them what they actually want done to the property. So in the past, housing would have gone out themselves and assessed what they thought needed to be changed. Now they go out with a tenant, and the tenant might say, actually, I love that floral 1970s carpet. that some other in the room, one might not remember the 70s, or might not have been born in the 70s, so they're then actually seeing what the tenant wants as opposed to what the council thinks that they need. So we've found that there's been a significant, if we please what they want, it's given us a far better financial result and a far better social outcome for us as well.
Great.
So it's very, very positive.
Yeah.
It's wonderful work.
And just lastly, just on the acquisitions budgets for the libraries and the public art gallery, 240,000 underspent. Can we get an idea of how that breaks down between the art gallery and the libraries, and whether it's envisaged that both of those will be underspent at year end, or just one of those two?
So I've got a response from Bernie, who's indicating operational expenditure. It might be easier if I just email this to all councillors. Would that be fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
So basically, of the 240, 126 relates to the acquisitions in the art gallery, and then 63 is the library acquisitions. So fundamentally, the library acquisitions will probably meet budget by the end of the year. The art gallery will be dependent. So some of their acquisitions are based on council rates funded, which is pretty close to budget, but the balance also relates to money that they expect they might get in for donated acquisitions. So that may or may not occur depending on that money coming in.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of pretty minor questions, really. The lower than expected building services activity, what falls within that group? Because I thought that we had rather a lot of activity in our building services.
There's activity and there's chargeable activity, so a lot of it is just stuff that we're just having to do as part of getting on top of the consents, as opposed to actually stuff that's fully billable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that relates to the size of the applications coming in or the nature of them?
So what's happening is that there's been a bit of change in the marketplace around the value is reasonably constant, is my understanding, but the number is significantly higher. So, and unfortunately, when you have a higher number, that means you need additional resource as well. So you're getting a bit of a double whammy because you still need to tick the boxes, which is a lot easier in a bigger job than it is on a smaller job because you still need to tick the boxes, so they're less efficient.
Yeah. So it would be accurate to say lower than expected billable building services activity, but potentially higher than expected unbillable activity.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. The community grants which are mentioned here, I wasn't aware that we had a grants process in place yet under our waste strategy. I know that it's in the ambition around the plan, but I wasn't aware but it's mentioned here as delayed payment of a number of community grants. Page 19 of 35, in the fourth bullet point, bottom of the fourth bullet point. Yeah, so.
To about last year that we give money to one of the organisations to clear.
The landfill offset.
No, it wasn't landfill offset, it was another one. Was it Salvation Army or something?
Yeah.
That
We
they
may
got to
need
dump.
to, yeah, it could be. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And digital office, again, just seeking clarity around that. The digital office doesn't exist anymore, so I'm assuming that that's, is that Chorus administered grants or that we're administering for Chorus, or is it some other? I think we just need perhaps to check that one. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, there's one more in here somewhere. Oh, no, sorry, that was the one that Councillor Hawkins asked.
Thank you. Looking on page 28, water and waste, 1.289 million favourable. It says that higher than expected sludge volumes. And then I'll follow on from this. There are issues at Tahuna that are not being addressed, and was this budgeted accordingly by water and waste? Because I note in the commentary in the March 29th report on page 30 of that report that the incinerator refurbishment was being completed. Yeah.
So there's the solid waste is the 1.289 favourable, which is being due to high tonnages and expected. Some of that's from out of the district and high expected sludge volumes. What's happened with the incinerator is, I've been advised, is that at this stage it's still not running 24/7. It's only running 7 to 8 hours a day, which therefore means that they're still having to dispose of the sludge. Once that incinerator's up and running full time, that sludge amount will drop significantly. Or sludge volume, I should say.
I guess then there's going to be added cost to water and waste, which we're recouping in some regards, or a portion of.
Ironically, solid waste is in with water and waste anyway, so it's effectively an internal charge between themselves. So.
Is there any discussion? There's not. I shall put it. Those in favour? Aye. Next, carried. We move to the water fund report.
Talk to that. A couple of things I'd say is it was a good quarter for the fund, 2.2 return, but slightly behind benchmark. It'd be fair to say it was a quarter of two halves.
An 8.
An 8. We had 2 8s in this quarter. The first 8th didn't go particularly well, but the second 8th went very well. So the market has really rebounded at that second, the last 6 weeks of the quarter. The fund's meeting all the objectives that have been set of it, and it's still above its inflation-adjusted capital level, which has been quite good.
Councillor Lord, any discussion?